About a year ago, I covered a Grand Prix on the new Hockenheim circuit, the one that most modern F1 viewers will be familiar with. If you ask an older F1 fan about the Hockenheimring though, their eyes will well up and their voice will crack, and they'll reminisce about the days when cars used to scream through the trees at 170 miles per hour, inches from disaster and flat out all the way. Ah, those were the good old days, they say, completely ignoring the fact that the old Hockenheimring was ridiculously dangerous and probably killed several of their favourite drivers. Anyway, here it is, a Grand Prix at the old circuit in the closest world championship in F1 history. Coming into the German Grand Prix, Alain Prost was leading the championship by just 1.5 points over his teammate Niki Lauda, and Elio De Angelis was best of the rest for Lotus. Prost and De Angelis found themselves first and second on the grid for this Grand Prix, separated by 0.05 of a second in qualifying, but amazingly they were 1.4 seconds ahead of Derek Warwick, who qualified third, ahead of his teammate Patrick Tambay in fourth. Niki Lauda was down in 7th on the grid, which was actually quite normal for the Austrian, who was much better known for his racecraft than his quali pace, but it was a little more surprising to see Keke Rosberg down in 19th. The only failure to qualify was Mike Thackwell's naturally aspirated Tyrrell, which is okay because he would have been disqualified anyway due to Tyrrell's lead shot controversy. When the race got underway, De Angelis shot off the line and got to the inside for turn 1. Warwick attempted to follow him through, but Prost had too much traction and maintained second. Up into 4th went Piquet, and off into the forest they went. Warwick got a bad exit to Brem chicane 1, allowing Piquet through into 3rd. Further back there was slipstreaming galore, but luckily the first lap was clean. This is very much a power track, so look out for the most powerful cars coming through the field and making the early moves, like Rosberg there on that Ram. One thing I'm interested in on this first lap is how Lauda hasn't come through the field like I expected he would. He's side by side with Alboreto there, but look who's got ahead of both of them! That's a young Ayrton Senna running without a teammate due to Johnny Giocato breaking his legs at the British Grand Prix. It looks like Alboreto got the place, so it's Senna 6th, Alboreto 7th and Lauda 8th. Look at Senna there, challenging Tambay for 5th already! This was still his first season in F1, although he'd already taken 2 podiums for the team and was mixing it with the big guys like a veteran. I often wonder what would have become of Senna's career if he'd been given a dud car in his first year, like the 1981 Toleman. Would his career have still achieved the great heights that it did, or would he have just been an extra in F1's story? Who knows? The first retirement of the race was Mark Schurer, who the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed stalled on the grid. It was a turbo issue, which was frustratingly common in the mid-1980s. Senna's going for it, look, around the outside of Tambay's Renault heading up towards Brem chicane 2. And around the outside! Fantastic stuff! Ayrton Senna takes 5th! Lauda's also passed Alboreto for 7th, allowing Teo Fabi to challenge. Now the leaders are close again, De Angelis, Lauda and Piquet. Lauda then got past Tambay off screen, and although the Renault driver challenged again with the slipstream, the move stuck. That's one thing I love about the classic Hockenheimring, the slipstream. You didn't just have to pass the guy you were racing, you had to get far enough ahead that they couldn't just draft their way straight back past you again. It's really strategic stuff. On lap 5, off went Ayrton Senna! His rear wing failed completely and flew off the car, which is one of the worst things that can happen to a driver at the Hockenheimring. He hit the wall hard, but luckily was perfectly alright. With that being said, he had a great shot of a podium on this day, and what a result that would have been for Toleman to score 2 podium finishes in a row. Funnily enough, he's not the only person to have lost his rear wing at high speed at the Hockenheimring. Up in front, De Angelis was on fire. Literally, another turbo failure, and it was our race leader! Disaster! Prost now led, followed by Piquet, Warwick, Lauda and Fabi. Philippe Alliot was also out with an overheating engine, so the typical Hockenheim attrition was starting early. I'm quite surprised that De Angelis didn't win a race in '84 actually. He was extremely good, but a combination of reliability troubles and McLaren dominance spoiled his chances. Speaking of McLaren though, Prost is behind Piquet! The lead has changed again for the second time in one lap. On lap 8, Alboreto came into the pits for unknown reasons, and Lauda got up to 3rd ahead of Warwick. I do wish the camera operators would stop missing everything, but that's the 1980s for you, I guess. They also missed Keke Rosberg climbing into 5th place, and he now sits on the back of Warwick. That's 14 positions gained in just 8 laps. The other Williams of Jacques Lafeppe was not having the same luck, nor were the two Ocellas of Joe Gardner or Piercarlo Genzani, who also retired with technical issues. The next car out was slightly more notable. Michele Alboretto's Ferrari had been dropping back after starting 6th, and at this point it was clear that the car hadn't been running right all race. Only 15 of the 26 starters remained at this point, and we're only 15 laps in. Look at the poor Ferrari mechanics there. How are they supposed to mess up their strategy when the car can't even make it that far? Also, you may notice that Keke Rosberg isn't in the top 6 anymore there. Apparently he had an electrical failure a few laps before this, but no one really noticed. It's such a shame because he'd been driving so well up until that point. Back in front, look at this! Prost back in the lead! And now Lauda's second! Piquet's looking around as if there's a problem, but is it race ending? Yes is the answer to that. Out of the race went Piquet in much the same way that De Angelis did, just with less fire. Derek Warwick was now up to 3rd, but for the umpteenth time in 1984, the McLarens found themselves 1st and 2nd. Next to 4 was Teo Fabi, who had been running in 4th place. Are you guys getting the impression of how much attrition there was back in those days? No one was safe. Front of the grid or back, veteran or rookie, old or young, the attrition was biting them all. Patrick Tambay was now 4th ahead of Nigel Mansell, who was up to 5th from 16th on the grid. Also out of the race by this point was Riccardo Patrese, who was quickly joined by his Alfa Romeo teammate Eddie Cheever, and then Manfred Winkelhock's ATS gave up the ghost. Phew-ee. Anyway, let's play another round of Help the 1980s F1 Cameraman Find the Cars. They're not over there. There they are, well done. Finally, the race came to an end, and every single car still out there breathed a sigh of relief. Prost won, and it was a McLaren 1-2 with Lauda coming in 2nd. Derek Warwick claimed his final F1 podium in 3rd place, and the rest of the point scorers were Mansell, Tambay and INOUE, meaning that interestingly half of the point scorers were French. 10 cars finished in total, although one of those was later disqualified, with that being Stefan Johansson in his lead-laden Tyrrell. The McLarens went hand in hand back to the pits looking all romantic and lovely, isn't that nice? Guys, before I give this race a score, I want to let you know that I have a Daily Motion account for all the races that get taken down from my YouTube channel by the pesky FOM bots. Due to the high levels of parody, review and education my videos contain, as well as the short lengths of the clips I use, I believe that all of my videos fall under fair use, but sadly this isn't always enough. On my Daily Motion account, you can find the 1996 Monaco and Portuguese Grand Prix, as well as any other video that may end up being taken down from my YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Thank you. I gave the Grand Prix a 4.7 out of 10, because while it was unpredictable and attritional, there wasn't really any strategy or wheel-to-wheel racing involved. This was partly because it happened in a time before regular pit stops, but it still felt rather disappointing. I'll give the Driver of the Day award for Best Driver to Nigel Mansell, who made up for a bad qualifying position by climbing up the field to 4th. This award possibly could have gone to his teammate De Angelis, but I feel he retired too early for us to know what his true form was. I'll give the INOUE trophy for Worst Driver to Dr. Palmer, who was a long way off the pace before retiring from the race, although really there was no one truly deserving of this award. Drive safely guys, and I'll see you next time.